The ink on the divorce papers was the only thing dry in our lives. Everything else, our hearts, our patience, our 5-year marriage, was a sodden, tangled mess. "You're late. Again," I said, my voice like sandpaper. I stood in the foyer of our cold, minimalist apartment, clutching my briefcase. Lucas didn't even look up as he kicked off his shoes. "The surgery ran long, Alex. A child's life was on the line. Sorry my hero complex interfered with your schedule." "It's not the schedule, it's the priority," I snapped. As an Omega, I was expected to be the anchor, but I was tired of drifting alone while my alpha husband chased every crisis in the city. "We're going to be late to our own divorce hearing. Can you imagine the irony? Maybe if you stopped being so damn cynical for 5 minutes, we could actually talk." Lucas roared, finally meeting my eyes. His gaze, once warm like honey, was now sharp enough to cut glass. "Talk. We've talked for 2 years, Lucas. All it leads to is you sleeping on the sofa and me crying in the shower so you won't hear. We're done. Let's just sign the papers and stop hurting each other." The drive to the courthouse was a suffocating vacuum. The rain lashed against the windshield, mimicking the storm inside the car. "I did love you, you know," Lucas whispered, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "I know," I choked out, looking out the window. "That's why this hurts so much." Then came the scream of tires, the blinding glare of high beams from a drifting truck, and the world turning upside down. The last thing I felt wasn't hate, it was Lucas's hand reaching for mine in the dark. Clang! The sound of steel on steel vibrated through my very teeth. My eyes snapped open, but I wasn't in a car. I was standing in a field of scorched purple grass. I felt heavy. My back felt like it was encased in iron, and my hand was gripping a black, pulsating obsidian blade. "Die, Dark Sovereign!" a voice roared. I blinked. In front of me stood a man in gleaming silver armor. He was massive, radiating a golden light that hurt my eyes. But his face, "Lucas," I croaked. The hero froze. His sword, dripping with blue magical energy, stopped inches from my throat. He looked at me, his jaw dropping. "Alex, why are you wearing, is that a cape? And why are your eyes glowing purple? Why am I wearing a cape?" I shrieked, looking down. I was dressed in spiked black armor that screamed, "I kick puppies for fun." "Why are you holding a glowing toothpick? And where is the car?" Around us, thousands of soldiers stopped fighting. On one side, a legion of demons and shadow creatures looked at me expectantly. On the other, knights in shining armor looked at Lucas. "My lord hero." A knight yelled, "Finish the villain. Take his head. Great Shadow King." A goblin thing squeaked at my feet. "Rip out his heart." Lucas and I stared at each other. "Alex, honey," Lucas said, his doctor voice coming out, though it was muffled by a helmet. "I think we're in a novel. Specifically, that fantasy book you used to read at 3 a.m. when you couldn't sleep. The Legend of the Twin Moons." I gasped. "The one where the villain, Alexei, gets decapitated in the first chapter by the hero, Lucian." "Precisely." Lucas looked at his glowing sword. "And I think I'm supposed to kill you now. Don't you dare. We haven't even finalized the divorce." I yelled, waving my obsidian sword. Suddenly, a burst of dark fire shot out of the blade, nearly singeing Lucas's eyebrows. "Oops, you tried to fire blast me." Lucas barked, his alpha instincts, or maybe just his annoyed husband instincts, flaring up. Typical. Even in another world, you're trying to have the kill, kill. The armies chanted in unison. The stress was too much. My body suddenly felt like it was stretching, cracking, and boiling. "Alex, your ears are getting pointy and furry," Lucas noted, backing up. With a loud poof of purple smoke, I wasn't a man anymore. I was a massive, sleek shadow panther with 6 tails and wings made of literal smoke. I let out a roar that shook the mountains, but in my head, I was just screaming, "My pants are gone." Lucas didn't miss a beat. His body erupted in golden light, transforming into a giant white lion with a mane of actual sunlight. The hero lion and the villain panther stood in the center of the battlefield. The world held its breath for the final, world-ending clash. Instead, the panther, sat down and started frantically grooming my paw out of nervous habit. Lucas, the lion, huffed, walked over, and swiped his massive tongue across my ear. "Stop that. I growled in our telepathic link. We're supposed to be mortal enemies. You missed a spot behind your ear, Lucas's voice echoed in my mind. And honestly, if we're stuck here, I'm not killing you. I've had enough of ending things for one day. The armies watched in stunned silence as the two greatest powers in the world stopped the war to have a domestic dispute in beast form. The battlefield of Oakhaven was silent enough to hear a pin drop, if that pin were made of enchanted steel and currently being held by a terrified orc. Lucas, the Golden Lion hero, and I, the Shadow Panther villain, stood nose to nose. To the 50,000 soldiers watching, we were preparing for a clash that would shatter the tectonic plates. In reality, we were having a telepathic breakdown. Alex, your tail is twitching. You always do that when you're lying about who ate the last of the leftovers, Lucas's voice rumbled in my brain. I am a six-tailed disaster cat of doom, Lucas. My tail is supposed to twitch. I hissed back. And for the record, it was the dog who ate the leftovers. Oh wait, we don't have a dog here. We have goblins. I looked at my general, a 7-foot-tall demon named Malphas who had skin like obsidian and breath that smelled like a sulfur factory. He was weeping with joy, his axe trembling. Yes, my dark liege. Tear the hero's throat out. Feast on his righteousness. Then there was Lucas's side. A high priestess named Seraphina, draped in white silk and looking like she'd never seen a speck of dust in her life, stepped forward. Sir Lucian, strike him down. Purify the land with his wretched blood. Lucas the lion let out a huff that blew Seraphina's hair back. He shifted back into his human form with a shimmer of gold. He stood there in his gleaming armor, looking every bit the legendary warrior, except he was pointing a finger at me, the giant panther, like I'd just tracked mud on the carpet. I am not purifying anyone today, Seraphina. I have a headache, I've been in a car crash, and frankly, I'm not in the mood for a crusade. Lucas yelled. I shifted back too. The transition was less graceful light, and more exploding purple glitter. I landed on my feet, adjusting my spiked shoulder pads which were unnecessarily heavy. Oh, so now you have the headache. I scoffed, crossing my arms. The villain voice was naturally deep and silky, which made my petty bickering sound terrifyingly elegant. I'm the one who had to manifest 6 tails, Lucas. Do you know how much brain power it takes to wag 6 tails at once? My Lord Shadow King, Malphas whispered, looking confused. Why are you discussing tail management with the Lightbringer? Shut up, Malphas. Can't you see we're middle of something? I snapped. But the prophecy. Seraphina stammered from the hero's side. The hero must slay the villain to bring the eternal spring. Lucas rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. The eternal spring sounds like a fancy name for an allergy season. Everyone, swords down. Now, the knights and the demons looked at each other. A skeleton warrior and a human paladin, who were mid-duel, slowly lowered their weapons and shared a look of pure bewilderment. Is the hero scolding the villain? The skeleton whispered. I think the villain just pouted, the paladin replied. I stepped closer to Lucas, my black cape billowing in a wind that didn't exist. This world really loved dramatic effects. This is embarrassing. Your fans are looking at us like we've lost our minds. We have lost our minds, Lucas whispered, leaning in so only I could hear. Alex, look at the UI. The what? The floating screen in the corner of your vision. I blinked, and sure enough, a small translucent box appeared. Current objective, kill the hero. Penalty for failure, eternal constipation. Eternal constipation, I shrieked. This novel is sadistic. Mine says if I don't kill you, I lose my holy aura, and turn into a literal goat, Lucas groaned. I looked at my army of monsters. They were bloodthirsty, terrifying, and currently looking at me for a signal to commit genocide. I had to act. I put on my best, evil overlord, face, eyebrows down, lips curled in a sneer. Listen up, you miserable heaps of darkness. I boomed. My voice echoed across the valley. The hero, has a very boring soul. If I kill him today, it won't be satisfying. I want him to suffer. I want him to watch me eat a very expensive dinner while he has none. Malphas blinked. A truly psychological torture, my liege. Brilliant. Exactly. Now, back to the Shadow Fortress. Move it or I'll turn your loincloths into lace. On the other side, Lucas took the hint. He brandished his glowing sword. And you, soldiers of light, The villain is, clearly using a high-level confusion spell. We must retreat to the citadel to, consult the Holy Library on how to deal with such pettiness. Retreat. As our armies marched in opposite directions, one side grumbling about, blue-balling a war, and the other confused about, psychological dinner torture, I managed to brush past Lucas one last time. Midnight, I hissed, pretending to try and stab him while actually just nudging his arm. The weeping willow forest. Middle ground. I'll bring the wine if I can find any, Lucas whispered back, parrying my stab with a theatrical flourish. And Alex, what? That armor makes your butt look great. Even if we are getting a divorce. Shut up, Lucas. See you at midnight. I turned on my heel, my purple cape snapping in the wind, and marched toward my dark palace, wondering if the Dark Sovereign had any decent skincare products in his vanity, because this villain lifestyle was already exhausting. The Whispering Woods lived up to its name. The silver leaves of the bioluminescent trees rustled with soft, gossiping sighs, glowing a pale neon blue. It was the kind of place where a hero and a villain should have a duel to the death. Instead, it was where a disgruntled divorce-seeking couple was trying to figure out how to operate a magical system that seemed to have been programmed by a chaotic toddler. I arrived first, still in my Shadow King ensemble, which, I discovered, came with a very dramatic, very heavy crown that kept slipping over my eyes. I sat on a glowing mushroom, swinging my legs. Crunch. A golden light broke through the trees. Lucas appeared, his hero cape snagging on a thorn bush. Stupid, holy fabric, he muttered, yanking it free. He looked up and saw me. The moonlight hit his face, and for a second, I forgot we were supposed to be signing legal documents. He looked like the man I'd married 7 years ago, before the long shifts and the cold dinners. You're late, I said, trying to keep my voice sharp. Again, the high priestess wanted to bless my sword for 40 minutes, Alex. I couldn't exactly tell her I had a date with the Dark Lord. Lucas sat down on a log opposite me, his armor clanking. Okay, I said, waving a hand. A translucent screen flickered into life between us. Alert. Hero and villain in proximity. Commencing duel. Wait, Lucas shouted at the screen. We're testing each other's spiritual defenses. It's a psychological duel. The screen paused. A loading icon shaped like a skull spun around. Logic accepted. Duel mode. Mental warfare. Fooled it, Lucas grinned. Now, how do we get home? I have a surgery scheduled for Monday, and I'm pretty sure my malpractice insurance doesn't cover transmigration to a shonen novel. And I have a gallery opening. I groaned. But look at this, Lucas. To get back, the world balance has to be restored. That means the hero and villain have to resolve their conflict. Usually, that means one of us dies. Well, I'm not killing you, Lucas said instantly. He leaned forward, his eyes softening. Even if you did take the good blender in the divorce settlement. I bought that blender, Lucas. Lucas laughed, a warm sound that felt out of place in this haunted forest. He stood up and walked over to my mushroom. Before I could protest, he reached out and tucked a strand of my hair, which was now an iridescent violet, behind my ear. Stop that, I snapped, though my heart did a traitorous little flip. We're separated, remember. Technically, Lucas said, his voice dropping an octave as he stepped into my personal space. The judge never signed the papers. And in this world, there are no divorce lawyers. Just priests and demons. So, legally speaking, you're still my husband. He rested a hand on my waist, pulling me slightly closer. The heat from his holy aura was infuriatingly comforting. Get off, I yelled, my face heating up. I started hitting his chest, but because I was an omega in this world, my strength felt more like a kitten batting at a ball of yarn. Thwack, thwack, I am the Shadow King. Unhand me, you overgrown flashlight. You're so cute when you're evil, Lucas teased, catching my wrists. He didn't let go. He just looked at me, and for the first time in years, there was no stress in his eyes. No pagers going off, no society expectations, no alpha, omega roles to play for the cameras. Just us. Fine, I huffed, pulling away and smoothing my dramatic black robes. If we can't kill each other, we have to make our sides stop fighting. We need to bridge the gap. You mean? Lucas's brow furrowed. We make them friends. If my General Malphas and your priestess Serafina can share a drink without trying to decapitate each other, the conflict ends. The system will think the world is balanced, and hopefully, the portal home will open. Make a demon and a saint go on a blind date. Lucas whistled. Alex, you really are a villain. That's cruel. It's either that or I turn you into a frog, Lucas. Choose. As we sat there planning how to manipulate a literal goddess and a pit lord, the magic of the world seemed to hum around us. Fireflies that looked like tiny stars danced between us. In our old world, we were drowning in must-dos. Here, we were just two idiots in capes. I looked at Lucas as he traced a map in the dirt, explaining the citadel's layout. I realized I hadn't seen him this relaxed since our honeymoon. What? He asked, catching me staring. Nothing, I said quickly, looking away. Just, your crown is crooked. Fix it for me. I reached up, my fingers brushing his forehead. He leaned into my touch, and for a split second, the divorce felt like a dream from another life. Don't get used to it, I whispered. Too late, he grinned. The Secret Peace Summit was held in the neutral zone, a valley of weeping crystal willows that hummed a low, melodic tune whenever anyone approached. I had spent 3 hours convincing Malphas that diplomacy wasn't a type of slow-acting poison, while Lucas had apparently spent his morning telling Serafina that mercy was the new trend in heaven. We had set up a long, enchanted table. On one side sat the Legion of Gloom, Malphas the demon, a skeletal mage named Bonesy, and my personal guard, Lord Kalen. Kalen was a problem. In this world, he was a shadow knight, a high-ranking alpha with silver hair, dark plate armor, and a voice like velvet poured over gravel. In the original novel, he was the villain's right-hand man. In this reality, he was currently leaning far too close to me, adjusting my heavy velvet cloak. My Shadow King, Kalen whispered, his hand lingering on my shoulder. You look particularly radiant in this moonlight. Perhaps after this negotiation with the Light Dwellers, I could escort you to the obsidian balcony for some tactical meditation. Across the table, I heard a metallic crack. I looked up. Lucas was holding a silver chalice that was now shaped like a crushed soda can. His eyes were glowing a terrifying shade of holy gold, and his canine teeth looked significantly sharper than they had 10 minutes ago. Is there a problem, hero? I asked, suppressing a smirk. The cup was defective, Lucas gritted out. He glared at Kalen's hand on my shoulder. And Kalen was it. I didn't know the Shadow King required a valet to help him sit down. Isn't he the sovereign of terror? He is, Kalen purred, ignoring the death glare. But even terror deserves to be handled with care. Lucas's inner alpha let out a low, guttural growl that vibrated the plates. Serafina, the high priestess, gasped and started throwing holy salt over her shoulder. The hero is sensing the deep-rooted evil. Look how he trembles with righteous fury. I'm not trembling with fury, Serafina. Lucas caught my eye. I blew him a tiny, mocking kiss. I'm just hungry. Pass the enchanted bread. All right, everyone. I stood up, my purple cape fluttering. To bridge the gap between our worlds, we shall engage in the trust fall. Is that a forbidden hex? Bonesy the skeleton asked, his jawbone clattering. No, I sighed. Malphas, you stand behind Serafina. When she falls backward, you catch her. The demon looked at the pristine priestess. My lord, if I touch her, I might get holy hives. Her skin is made of literal sunshine. And if he touches me, I'll need a 3-day exorcism. Serafina shrieked. Do it. Lucas and I barked at the same time. The married couple command voice was so powerful that the two subordinates jumped. What followed was 20 minutes of pure comedy. Malphas caught Serafina, but his claws accidentally shredded the back of her silk robe. She responded by, accidentally, splashing him with holy water, which made him smoke like a burnt steak. While the side characters were busy traumatizing each other, Kalen turned his attention back to me. He leaned in, his scent, dark musk and cedar, filling my space. My king, Kalen murmured, why do you waste time with that golden lion? He is a bore. You need someone who understands the darkness in your soul. Someone who can truly appreciate an omega of your caliber. He reached out to touch my cheek. Bam! Lucas slammed his fist onto the table, shattering a plate of dragon fruit. He stood up, towering over everyone. The hero persona was gone. This was the jealous husband who once almost fought a delivery driver for flirting with me at our front door. That's enough, Lucas roared. Alex, come here. I beg your pardon, I said, arching an eyebrow. I am a sovereign. I don't come when called. Alex, now. Lucas walked around the table, grabbed my hand, and pulled me up. He turned to Kalen, his voice dropping into a dangerous, alpha rumble. I don't care if you're a shadow knight or a shadow janitor. If you touch my mortal enemy like that again, I will personally show you why they call me the light bringer. I'll bring enough light to burn your eyeballs out. Understood. Kalen blinked, his hand moving to his sword hilt. The hero is protective of the villain. How scandalous. It's not scandalous, it's professional rivalry. Lucas snapped, though his hand was still firmly gripped around my waist, pulling me flush against his side. I leaned my head against Lucas's armored shoulder for a second, feeling his heart racing. You're overacting, hero, I whispered. I am not overacting, Lucas hissed into my ear, his breath hot. He was touching your face, Alex. We are still married. If anyone is going to annoy you or touch your face, it's me. Do you hear me? Only me. I looked up at him. The drama of the world, the magic, the monsters, the war, faded away. For a moment, he wasn't Drive. Lucas who was always too busy. He was just Lucas, the man who was terrified of losing me. You're an idiot, I muttered, but I didn't pull away. You're idiot, he countered. My lord, Malphas yelled, interrupting us. The priestess is trying to convert Bonesy. He started praying. His ribs are glowing. I sighed, pulling away from Lucas's warmth. Duty calls. We need to stop them before the skeleton goes to heaven. Fine, Lucas grumbled, casting one last warning glare at Kalen. But we're discussing your Shadow Knight problem later. Privately. The secret summit ended in a chaotic mess of holy water and demonic smoke, but the real trouble started when Lucas and I tried to walk back to our respective kingdoms. Suddenly, the air froze. The bioluminescent trees turned a jagged, warning red. A massive, golden-bordered notification popped up in the sky, large enough for the entire continent to read. Critical error, narrative stagnation detected. The hero and villain are showing suspicious levels of domestic cooperation. Initiating plot correction protocol, the forbidden dungeon of eternal ruin. Plot correction, I yelped, clutching my crown. That sounds. Before I could finish, the ground beneath our feet vanished. Lucas and I tumbled into a swirling vortex of purple and gold light. The dungeon of teamwork. We landed with a heavy thud on a cold, damp stone floor. I groaned, rubbing my hip. Lucas, your armor is digging into my ribs. Get off. I can't. Lucas grunted, struggling to stand. Alex, look at our wrists. I looked down. A shimmering, unbreakable chain of magical energy connected my left wrist to Lucas's right. It pulsed with a rhythmic, annoying pink light. Dungeon rule number 1, the soul bond constraint. To escape, the hero and villain must reach the heart of the ruins. Distance allowed between parties, 3 feet. Exceeding distance results in a 50,000 volt, love shock. 50,000 volts. I screamed at the ceiling. We were in the middle of a divorce. This is harassment. It's a forced proximity trope, Alex, Lucas sighed, helping me up. The system is literally forcing us to interact until we either kill each other or, well, whatever the fans of this novel want. We began walking through the dark, moss-covered corridors. Every time I tried to storm ahead in a fit of pique, the chain yanked Lucas forward, causing him to stumble into my back. Watch it. I snapped. I am watching it. You're the one walking like you're on a Parisian catwalk. Lucas retorted. Also, can we talk about Kalen? Why was he touching your shoulder like he owned the property? Oh, for heaven's sake, I rolled my eyes, the chain rattling between us. He's a loyal subordinate. He was being attentive. He was being an alpha, Lucas growled, his golden eyes flashing in the dark. I know the look. He wants the throne, and he wants the king. I should have challenged him to a duel right there. And blow our cover. Brilliant, Drive, Miller. Truly genius, I mocked. Let's just focus on the. I stopped. We had entered a room filled with floating, crystalline mirrors. Dungeon challenge, the mirror of truth. Reflect upon your greatest regret to open the door. In the mirror, the image didn't show the Shadow King or the Golden Hero. It showed our old kitchen. It showed the night of our 3rd anniversary, the one Lucas missed because of an emergency surgery. I saw myself sitting at the table, the candles burnt down to stubs, a cold lasagna in front of me. I saw the look of pure, hollow loneliness on my face. Beside my reflection, Lucas's mirror showed him standing in the hospital hallway, head in his hands, staring at a phone filled with missed calls from me. He looked exhausted, aged by a decade. The silence in the dungeon became heavy. The comedy was gone. I didn't know you looked like that, Lucas whispered, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I knew you were angry, Alex. I didn't realize you were fading away. I felt invisible, Lucas, I said, my voice trembling. I wasn't angry because you were saving lives. I was angry because I didn't have a life with you anymore. I was just a ghost in our house. Lucas reached out, the magical chain glowing softly as he moved. He took my hand, not with the alpha grip he'd used on the battlefield, but with the gentle touch of the man I fell in love with in college. I thought if I worked harder, I could give us everything, he murmured. I didn't realize, everything was just me being home for dinner. The mirrors shattered into 1,000 shimmering petals. The door creaked open. Refined narrative progress, 15%. System note, that was surprisingly depressing. Please add more, villainous smirking, and heroic posturing, to maintain genre standards. Shut up, you stupid box. I yelled at the screen. Yeah, mind your business. Lucas added, squeezing my hand. We walked through the door, still chained together. The air was warmer now, smelling of jasmine and ozone. Alex, Lucas said as we navigated a narrow ledge over a pit of glowing lava. Yes, if we get back, I mean, really back to our world, do we still have to go to the courthouse? I looked at him, the golden hero who was currently sweating in 50 pounds of armor just to stay by my side. I looked at the chain connecting us. Let's see if we survive the boss fight first, I said, a small, genuine smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. And Lucas, if you ever call me cute in front of my demon army again, I will find a way to make that 50,000-volt shock happen to you personally. Deal, he laughed. The heart of the ruins wasn't a monster or a dragon. It was a vast, circular cathedral made of white marble and obsidian, silent as a grave. In the center, a massive, swirling orb of Chronos magic pulsed like a heartbeat. Final trial, the unspoken truth. To leave this realm, the hero and villain must walk through the corridor of their shared past. Only by witnessing the death of love can you earn the life of the future. The magical chain between our wrists tightened, glowing a harsh, clinical white. It felt like a cold stethoscope against my skin. Alex, Lucas whispered, his voice echoing in the vast space. I don't think I'm ready to see this. We don't have a choice, I replied, my throat tight. The system wants to watch us bleed. The first archway shimmered into existence. It was a projection of a sunny university campus. We saw a younger Lucas, no armor, just a messy sweatshirt and a stethoscope draped around his neck, running across the grass to catch a younger me. I was sitting under a tree, sketching. He tripped, spilled his coffee, and we both burst into laughter. You were so clumsy, I murmured, watching the younger Lucas kiss me with a clumsy, desperate adoration. You told me you'd always make me laugh. I meant it, Lucas said, his eyes fixed on the image. The scene shifted. Our honeymoon. A small cabin in the mountains. We were wrapped in a single blanket, watching the sunrise. The younger Lucas was whispering, I don't need the world, Alex. I just need this room. I'll never let anything come between us. Watching it felt like being stabbed with a dull knife. It was so pure, it was painful. As we walked deeper into the cathedral, the air grew colder. The light turned gray. The next projection was our 3rd year of marriage. I watched myself standing in our kitchen. It was 2 a.m. I had prepared a surprise birthday dinner. The cake was sitting on the counter, its icing beginning to melt. The door opened. Lucas walked in, looking like a ghost. He didn't even see the cake. He didn't see me. He just went straight to the sink and started scrubbing his hands, over and over, as if he could wash off the stress of the ER. Lucas. The mirror, Alex asked softly. It's my birthday. I lost a patient today, Alex, the mirror, Lucas snapped, his voice jagged with exhaustion. I can't think about cake right now. I just can't. In the present, Lucas flinched. I forgot. I actually forgot your birthday because I was so consumed by the grief of others. I brought the hospital home with me every single night. You didn't just bring it home, Lucas, I said, tears finally spilling over. You let it move in. You let it take my seat at the table. You became a hero to everyone in the city, but you became a stranger to me. The final archway was the hardest to watch. It was 2 weeks before the accident. We were in the living room. No one was shouting. That was the scariest part. We were just done. I'm tired of waiting for a man who isn't coming back, Mirror Alex said, placing a manila envelope on the coffee table. His voice was hollow, the sound of a heart that had finally stopped beating for someone. Is this what you want? Mirror Lucas asked, his eyes red. No, Mirror Alex whispered. But it's what I need to survive. Because loving you feels like drowning in an empty ocean. In the dungeon, Lucas fell to his knees, the chain clattering on the marble. He wasn't the golden hero anymore. He was just a man who had realized he'd won the world but lost his soul. I thought I was doing it for us, Lucas choked out, burying his face in his hands. The overtime, the promotions. I thought if I was the best doctor, I'd be worthy of you. But I was just a coward hiding from the intimacy I didn't know how to handle. I knelt beside him, the villainous spikes of my armor clashing against his holy plate. I reached out and pulled his head to my chest. We both failed, Lucas, I whispered into his hair. I stopped fighting for you. I started building walls because I was scared of being hurt again. Every argument we had in that last year, it wasn't about the dishes or the schedule. It was me screaming, look at me. Please, just see me. I see you now, Lucas sobbed, his arms wrapping around my waist, holding me as if I were the only solid thing in a crumbling universe. God, Alex, I see you. I'm so sorry. Please don't let the last thing we do be a divorce. Not here. Not anywhere. The Chronos orb above us turned a brilliant, blinding white. The system screen flickered one last time. Narrative conflict resolved. Heartbreak acknowledged. The hero and villain have faced the truth. The path to the gateway is open. The marble walls began to crack, revealing a swirling portal of home. The gray rain of our world, the sound of sirens, the smell of asphalt. Is this it? I asked, trembling. We go back to the car crash. To the hospital. Lucas stood up, wiping his eyes. He looked at the portal, then back at me. He took my hand, the one without the chain, and interlaced our fingers. If we go back together, he said firmly. No more hero, no more villain. Just Lucas and Alex, even if we have to start from zero in a hospital bed. I looked at the portal. I could see the edge of our old life. But I also looked at this magical world, where for a brief, chaotic moment, we had found each other again. Okay, I whispered. Together. The transition was not a roar of magic, but a slow, agonizing crawl back into reality. The smell of jasmine and ozone was replaced by the sharp, sterile scent of antiseptic and the rhythmic beep, 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 of a heart monitor. My eyes felt like they were glued shut. My body was heavy, not with the weight of black obsidian armor, but with the dull, throbbing ache of human bone and bruised skin. Alex. The voice was raspy, cracked like dry earth, but I would know it in any universe. I forced my eyes open. The hospital room was bathed in the soft, gray light of a rainy morning. Lucas was in the bed next to me. He wasn't the golden lion anymore. He was pale, his head wrapped in bandages, his arm in a cast. But his eyes, those honey-colored eyes, were fixed on me with a desperation that made my breath hitch. Between our beds, on a small metal rolling table, sat a plastic bag containing our personal effects. Inside, peeking out from a stack of ruined clothes, was the manila envelope. The divorce papers. They were damp from the rain of the crash, the edges crinkled and stained. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't the suffocating vacuum of our old apartment, it was a fragile, sacred space. I had the strangest dream, I whispered, my voice barely a breath. I was a cat. A very angry, six-tailed cat. Lucas let out a weak, watery laugh that turned into a wince. And I was a lion with a hero complex. I think I spent half the time trying to keep you from fire blasting my eyebrows off. He reached out his good hand, stretching across the gap between our beds. His fingers trembled. I reached out mine, and when our skin touched, a tiny, almost invisible spark of violet and gold light flickered between our palms. A remnant. A secret. A promise. Alex, Lucas said, his gaze dropping to the envelope. About those papers. I know, I said. My heart hammered against my ribs. The system said we had to face the death of love to earn a future. I saw us, Lucas. I saw how lonely I was, and I saw how lost you were. I don't want to be lost anymore, Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion. He looked at the papers, then back at me. I spent so much time trying to be a hero for everyone else that I let our home turn into a battlefield. I'm not asking you to forget the pain. I'm just asking, can we stop the war? Can we just be Alex and Lucas again? I looked at the man who had chased me through a magical dimension just to hold my hand. I thought of the way he looked at me in the Whispering Woods, not as a burden but as his entire world. Hand them to me, I said. Lucas carefully picked up the damp envelope and passed it to me. With trembling fingers, I took the papers out. The ink was blurred, the signatures we had fought so hard to place there now illegible. With a slow, deliberate motion, I ripped them down the center. Then again, and again. The sound of the paper tearing was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard. We're starting from zero, I whispered, dropping the scraps into the bin. No more alpha and omega roles. No more hero and villain. Just us. Lucas pulled my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles with a tenderness that brought fresh tears to my eyes. I'm going to be home for dinner, Alex, he promised. Every night I can. And when I can't, I'm going to call you. I'm going to see you. I'm never going to let you become a ghost in our house again. And I'm going to stop building walls, I replied, leaning my head back against the pillow, watching the sun finally break through the rain clouds outside the window. I'll let you in, even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy. As the morning sun hit the room, for just a split second, the shadow of a panther's tail flickered on the wall behind my bed, and a golden mane seemed to shimmer around Lucas's head. We had transmigrated as enemies, fought as rivals, and returned as a soul-bonded pair. The novel was over, but our story was finally, truly beginning. I love you, Lucas, I said, closing my eyes and feeling the warmth of his hand. I love you more than all the stars in the twin moon sky, he whispered back. Outside, the world went on, loud, busy, and mundane. But inside that room, there was only peace. The divorce was dead. The marriage was reborn. And for the first time in years, the hero and the villain were exactly where they were meant to be, together. 1 year later, the only thing villainous about our apartment was the sheer amount of baby glitter on the hardwood floors. The hospital scent was a distant memory, replaced by the warm, comforting aroma of roasted garlic and the sweet, milky scent of a nursery. Our home was no longer a minimalist mausoleum of silence, it was a sanctuary filled with the soft hum of a life being lived together. I stood in the kitchen, wearing a soft silk robe. I wasn't wearing obsidian armor anymore, but as I reached for a high cabinet, a faint purple glow shimmered around my fingers. The plate floated down into my hand. Cheating again, my dark liege. I turned to see Lucas leaning against the doorframe. He looked incredible, healthy, tanned, and wearing a crisp white shirt that reminded me of his hero days, though his sleeves were rolled up to reveal a small, gold ink tattoo of a lion on his forearm. It's not cheating, it's efficiency, I teased, walking over to him. He didn't wait. He pulled me into his arms, his touch as electric as the day we met in the Whispering Woods. He kissed me deeply, a slow, passionate kiss that tasted like wine and 1,000 whispered apologies. There was no alpha, omega hierarchy here, just two souls who had survived the end of the world to find their way back to a Tuesday night. A soft, melodic coo came from the monitor on the counter. Someone's awake, Lucas whispered against my neck, his breath hitching. We walked together into the nursery. The walls were painted a soft lavender, and hanging above the crib was a mobile of golden lions and shadow panthers dancing in a circle. In the center of the crib lay Luna. She was 3 months old, with my dark hair and Lucas's bright, honey-colored eyes. As we leaned over the railing, she reached up her tiny chubby hands. A small, golden spark danced between her fingertips, and for a second, her little ears looked just a bit pointy. She's definitely ours, I laughed softly, picking her up. A little hero with a villain's temper. Lucas wrapped his arms around both of us, resting his chin on my shoulder. He pressed a kiss too. Luna's forehead and then to mine. She's perfect. We're perfect. Later that night, after Luna had finally drifted back to sleep, the house grew quiet. But it wasn't the lonely silence of our past. It was the heavy, charged silence of a couple who still couldn't get enough of each other. Lucas led me to our bedroom, the lights dimmed to a soft amber glow. He pressed me back against the mattress, his hands roaming over my body with a reverence that made me feel like the most precious thing in existence. I spent years looking for a purpose, Lucas murmured, his voice a low, gravelly rumble as he trailed kisses down my collarbone. I thought it was being a doctor. I thought it was being a hero. But it was always you, Alex. It was always coming back to you. You're a year late on that realization, I breathed, arching my back as his touch ignited a familiar fire. But I think I'll let it slide. I'll spend the rest of our lives making it up to you, he promised, his eyes glowing with that faint, magical gold. In the dark of our room, away from the wars of another world and the pressures of this one, we weren't a story in a book. We weren't a tragedy or a comedy. We were just two people who had died together, only to realize that living together was the greatest adventure of all. As we fell into each other, the divorce papers were long since turned to ash, and the only thing that mattered was the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of a family that had finally found its balance. The end. Next. There another story. The wind didn't just blow, it screamed, carving through Leo's thin linen tunic like a serrated blade. He lay curled in the hollow of a dead oak, his fingers blue, his breath hitching in shallow, crystalline puffs. To the Silver Moon Pack, he was a broken Omega, scentless, weak, and unable to bear strong airs. When the frost bit deep into the valley, his Alpha had decided he wasn't worth the rations. They hadn't even used a blade, they had simply dragged him to the edge of the forbidden forest and left him to the winter. I'm sorry I was so useless, Leo thought, his eyelids heavy with the fatal lethargy of hypothermia. I hope the snow covers me quickly. A sound broke the silence of the falling snow. It wasn't the wind. It was a low, visceral thrum that vibrated in Leo's very marrow. Grr rumble. The trees groaned. Heavy, rhythmic thuds crunched the frozen earth, growing closer. Leo didn't move. He didn't have the strength to flee, and frankly, he didn't want to. Death by a predator was faster than death by ice. A massive silhouette emerged from the blizzard. Scales the color of midnight shimmered with a faint, obsidian light. It was a dragon, the ancient shifters of the deep woods. This was William, the Black Dread, a creature of legend and terror. He shifted mid-stride, his massive form shrinking, bones popping and realigning until a tall, imposing man stood in the clearing. William's eyes were slits of molten gold, glowing with a cold, predatory hunger. He looked down at the shivering heap of a boy at his feet. An offering. William's voice was like grinding stones. Or a spy. Leo looked up, his silver eyes clouded with tears that froze on his lashes. Just a ghost, he whispered, his voice cracking. Please, make it quick. William paused, his nostrils flaring. He smelled the scent of the Silver Moon Pack, and the unmistakable stench of rejection. This Omega had been cast out. Before William could reach for his blade, a small shadow darted from behind his fur-lined cloak. It was Liam, his 5-year-old son. Liam was a tiny reflection of his father, but his eyes were wide and soft. For 5 years, the boy had been a source of silent grief for William. Since the day his biological mother died in childbirth, Liam had not uttered a single sound. No cry, no laugh, no word. William watched, stunned, as Liam scrambled through the snow and threw his small, warm body over Leo's freezing chest. Mama. The word cracked the frozen air like a lightning bolt. William froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. Liam, what did you? Mama. Warm. Mama. Liam wailed, burying his face in Leo's neck. He didn't care about the lack of scent or the broken nature the pack had claimed. He felt a soul bond, a tether of pure, golden light that only a child's instinct could see. Leo's heart, which had been slowing to a final stop, gave a violent thud. The warmth of the child was like a brand. He instinctively wrapped his trembling arms around the boy. I'm not. Leo choked out, looking up at the towering Alpha. I'm not your mama, little one. Mama. Liam insisted, his tiny hands clutching Leo's tunic with a strength that shouldn't have been possible. He looked at his father, his eyes pleading. For the first time in 5 years, the mute prince was speaking, and he was speaking for a dying stranger. William stepped forward, his shadow engulfing them both. He knelt, his massive hand gripping Leo's chin, forcing him to look up. William's alpha energy was suffocating, hot, spicy, and dangerously protective. I don't know what sorcery you've used to make my son find his voice, William hissed, though his eyes weren't angry, they were desperate. But he has claimed you. I have nothing, Leo sobbed, his body shaking with a mix of terror and sudden, flickering hope. I am broken. My pack threw me away because I am nothing. Your pack consists of fools, William growled. He easily scooped both the boy and the Omega into his massive arms. Leo felt like a bird trapped in a furnace, the heat radiating from the Dragon Alpha was intoxicating. Listen to me, little wolf, William whispered against Leo's ear, his voice dropping into a possessive, low register. You are in the Forbidden Forest now. You do not die until I give you permission. My son wants a mother, and it seems I have just found a mate. I can't. Leo began, his head spinning. You will, William commanded, his grip tightening protectively. We are going home. The dragon's mountain stronghold was not the cold cave Leo expected. It was a fortress of black stone and roaring hearths, smelling of cedar and ancient magic. But to Leo, it felt like a golden cage. William carried him into the great hall, his stride predatory and swift. He deposited Leo onto a pile of plush furs near the massive central fire. Liam refused to let go, his small arms locked around Leo's neck like a lifeline. He needs food. And heat, William barked at a group of stunned servants. And fetch the physician. If he dies, I'll hold every soul in this hall accountable. Leo shivered, not from the cold anymore, but from the sheer intensity of the Alpha standing over him. William's presence was a physical weight, suffocating and magnificent. Mama, eat, Liam whispered. The little boy was holding a piece of dried venison to Leo's lips. His golden eyes, so like his father's, were brimming with a terrifyingly pure devotion. Leo looked at the meat, then at the towering Alpha watching them with a skeptical, hard expression. Leo flinched, pulling back instinctively. I shouldn't, Leo murmured, his voice trembling. I am a low rank. I am not allowed to eat before the Alphas. William's eyes narrowed into slits. In this house, the weak are fed so they may become strong. Do not bring your pathetic pack's rules into my mountain. I'm sorry, Leo whispered, bowing his head so low his forehead touched the furs. Please, don't be angry. I'll do whatever you want. I'll clean, I'll cook, just don't throw me back into the snow. William felt a strange, uncomfortable tug in his chest. He didn't have feelings for this broken wolf, he didn't even know him. But the sight of such total submission made his inner dragon growl with a mix of irritation and a protective instinct he didn't want to acknowledge. I don't need a servant, William said coldly. I have plenty. I need my son to keep speaking. If you are the key to his voice, then you are the most valuable thing in this castle. Nothing more. Liam, sensing the tension, patted Leo's cheek. Mama, no cry. Liam, protect. Leo's heart broke. He pulled the child into his lap, burying his face in Liam's hair. You're so warm, Leo sobbed quietly. Thank you, little prince. While Leo was being bathed and dressed in silks that felt like water against his bruised skin, a dark meeting was taking place at the border of the Forbidden Forest. The Silver Moon Pack's lead scout, a cruel alpha named Silas, stared at the tracks in the snow. He survived, and a dragon took him. He's a defect, Silas, another scout spat. If the dragons find out he's scentless and broken, they'll think we insulted them by sending a trash Omega into their woods. The Alpha says he must be silenced before he can speak of how we treated him. Silas grinned, drawing a silver-tipped blade. A dead Omega tells no tales. We infiltrate tonight. The dragons are arrogant, they think no one dares enter their peaks. Inside the fortress, Leo was tucked into a massive bed, Liam curled into his side like a warm stone. The boy had finally fallen asleep, a smile on his face. The door creaked open. William stepped in, his shirt off, revealing the intricate black scales that shimmered across his shoulders and spine. He looked at the pair on the bed, the frail, pale wolf and his glowing dragon heir. Leo scrambled to sit up, his heart racing. My lord, I didn't mean to sleep in your bed, the servants told me. Quiet, William commanded, though his voice was softer to avoid waking Liam. He sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. He hasn't let go of you for 6 hours. Even in sleep, he searches for your hand. Leo looked down at Liam. He's a special boy. I don't know why he chose me. I'm nobody. He chose you because he smells something in you that I cannot, William said, his eyes scanning Leo's face. He reached out, his large, calloused hand hovering near Leo's neck. Leo flinched violently, closing his eyes and bracing for a blow. William paused, his hand freezing in midair. A flash of genuine anger crossed his face, not at Leo, but at whoever had taught the boy to fear a touch. I do not hit omegas, William growled. Even, broken, ones. I'm sorry, Leo gasped, tears leaking from his shut eyes. I'm just used to being punished for being in the way. William's hand moved again, but this time, it was slow. He brushed a thumb against Leo's damp cheek, wiping away a tear. The heat of the contact made Leo's breath hitch. For a second, their eyes locked, gold meeting silver. You are not in the way, William said, his voice dropping to a low, vibrations-filled rumble. You are the mother of the dragon prince now. If anyone tries to hurt you again. Suddenly, the scent of burning wood and stranger wolf filled the air. William's head snapped toward the window. His pupils turned into vertical slits. They are here, William hissed, his body rippling as his scales began to spread. Who? Leo asked, clutching Liam tighter. The trash that threw you away, William snarled, his voice turning into a draconic roar. They've come to finish the job. But they forgot one thing. He turned to Leo, his expression terrifyingly protective. Nothing leaves a dragon's hoard alive. Stay here. If you move from this bed, I will chain you to it myself for your own safety. The silence of the mountain was shattered by the sound of splintering wood and the agonizing howls of wolves who had vastly underestimated a dragon's fury. Inside the master suite, Leo pressed his back against the headboard, his arms wrapped so tightly around Liam that he feared he might stifle the boy. Mama. Loud noises. Liam stirred, his sleepy voice small and confused. It's okay, little Ember, Leo whispered, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Your father he's just protecting us. In the courtyard below, William was a whirlwind of shadow and tooth. He hadn't fully shifted, he remained in a terrifying half-form, his arms coated in obsidian scales and his fingers ending in talons that dripped with the blood of the Silver Moon assassins. Silas, the pack's lead scout, backed away, his silver blade trembling. Give us the Omega, dragon. He's a defect, a curse on any pack. We are doing you a favor by cleansing him. William's laugh was a low, vibrating growl that shook the very foundation of the fortress. A favor. He stepped into the moonlight, his molten eyes glowing with a predatory light. You threw a treasure into the snow because you were too blind to see its worth. My son spoke his first words for that defect. To me, that makes him more divine than any god you worship. With a roar that signaled the end of the negotiation, William lunged. He didn't use a weapon. He used the sheer, raw power of an ancient alpha. Within minutes, the courtyard was silent again, save for the crackle of the torches and the heavy, rhythmic breathing of a dragon who had tasted blood. The next morning, the sun crawled over the jagged peaks, painting the snow-capped mountains in hues of violet and gold. Leo woke to the smell of wood smoke and something sweet. He looked down to see Liam sitting cross-legged on the bed, holding a small wooden bowl of honeyed porridge. The boy was staring at Leo with such intense adoration that Leo felt a lump form in his throat. Mama, wake up. Eat. Liam chirped. He took a messy spoonful and held it to Leo's mouth. Leo took the bite, the sweetness overwhelming his senses. For years, he had eaten scraps, frozen rinds and gray broth. This felt like a dream he would eventually wake up from, cold and alone again. Thank you, Liam. You're such a good boy. Liam, big dragon, the child declared, puffing out his chest. I burn bad wolves for Mama. Leo laughed, a genuine, light sound that he hadn't heard from his own throat in years. He pulled Liam into a hug, nuzzling the boy's soft hair. I think you're already the bravest dragon in the world. The heavy oak door swung open. William stood there, no longer covered in the grime of battle, but dressed in dark silks. He looked tired, the golden glow of his eyes slightly dimmed. He watched the scene, the Omega and the child tangled in a mess of blankets and laughter, and for the first time, the coldness in his expression cracked. Leo immediately stiffened, his old instincts telling him to lower his gaze. My lord, I heard the fighting. Are you all right? William walked over, his heavy boots silent on the rugs. He didn't stop at the edge of the bed this time. He sat down, his massive frame radiating a heat that Leo found himself leaning toward. The Silver Moon Pack will not be bothering us again, William said simply. I sent their heads back to their alpha with a message. If a single wolf crosses the forbidden border again, I will burn their forest until the earth turns to glass. Leo gasped, his hand flying to his mouth. You did that, for me. I did it for my house, William countered, though his voice lacked its usual bite. He reached out, and this time, when Leo didn't flinch, he let his hand rest on the back of Leo's neck. The touch was possessive, warm, and surprisingly gentle. And perhaps, I did it because I grow tired of seeing you look at the door as if you expect to be kicked out. I've never been safe before, Leo whispered, his silver eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I don't know how to be, at home. William leaned in, his scent, cloves, ash, and rain, engulfing Leo. Then let me teach you. You are the heart of this mountain now, Leo. My son has claimed you as his mother, and my dragon is becoming very fond of your scent. But I have no scent, Leo reminded him sadly. I am a broken omega. William leaned down, his nose brushing against the sensitive skin of Leo's scent gland behind his ear. He took a deep, lung-filling breath. They were wrong, William murmured, his voice a low, seductive rumble. You don't smell like a typical omega. You smell like winter air and starlight. It is the purest scent I have ever known. Liam jumped between them, giggling and pushing his way into the middle of the embrace. Mama, Papa, group hug. William grunted, but he didn't pull away. He wrapped one arm around his son and the other around Leo, pulling them both into his broad, solid chest. For the first time in his life, Leo didn't feel like a broken wolf. He felt like a dragon's treasure. The mountain was alive with the sound of drums and the roar of celebratory dragon fire. Banners of obsidian and gold fluttered from the battlements, marking the first time in centuries. The Dragon King had named a consort. Inside the dressing chambers, Leo stared at his reflection, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He wore robes of heavy, midnight blue silk embroidered with real gold thread. A collar of enchanted silver, the mark of the dragon's protected mate, rested against his throat. You look beautiful, Mama. Liam chirped, tugging at Leo's sleeve. The little prince was dressed in miniature scale mail, looking every bit the future king. I feel like an imposter, Liam, Leo whispered, his hands trembling. I'm just a broken wolf. What if I shame your father? Papa says Mama is the North Star, Liam said firmly, repeating a phrase he'd overheard. Stars don't break. The great hall was packed with high-ranking shifters. Ancient dragon elders sat on elevated stone thrones, their faces etched with centuries of tradition and cold judgment. Among them sat Elder Valerius, a man whose scales were gray with age and whose heart was as hard as granite. Standing near the front was Caspian, a high-rank Phoenix Omega who had long hoped to sit on the throne beside William. Caspian's scent was a cloying, suffocating jasmine, and his eyes were sharp with venom. A wolf. Caspian sneered to a group of noble Omegas. Not just a wolf, but a broken one. No scent, no lineage, thrown out by his own gutter-born pack. William has lost his mind to grief if he thinks this stray can lead us. The boy spoke for him, one of the elders whispered. A trick of the light, Valerius grumbled. A dragon's throne requires power, not a charity case. The massive iron doors groaned open. William stepped in first, his presence so massive it seemed to suck the air out of the room. He scanned the crowd, his golden eyes burning with a silent warning. Then, he reached back and took Leo's hand. Leo stepped forward, his head bowed instinctively, but William's grip tightened, pulling him level. As they walked toward the dais, a heavy, suffocating silence fell over the hall. Members of the Great Horde, William's voice boomed, vibrating through the floorboards. Today, I name Leo as my consort. He has saved the voice of my heir, and he has claimed my protection. To touch him is to touch my blade. A moment, Your Majesty, Elder Valerius stood, his voice rasping. Tradition dictates the consort must be of equal standing. This creature has no scent. He cannot even provide the pheromones to calm a dragon's blood rage. He is a defect. He will weaken the bloodline. Caspian stepped forward, his silk robes fluttering. My lord William, surely you see the insult. To place a reject from a common wolf pack above the noble houses. I can offer you fire and glory. He offers you nothing but a burden. Leo flinched, the old familiar shame washing over him. They're right, he thought, his eyes stinging. I'm just a burden. William's eyes turned into molten slits. The temperature in the room rose 10 degrees in a heartbeat. A burden, William growled, stepping toward Caspian. You speak of bloodlines and pheromones, yet for 5 years, my son was silent in this, noble, hall. Not one of you, with your high ranks and suffocating sense, could reach him. It was luck. Caspian cried out, his face flushing. He is a low-rank Omega, William. He shouldn't even be allowed to sit at your table, let alone wear the silver collar. Suddenly, a small, fierce shadow darted in front of Leo. Liam stood with his legs spread wide, his tiny hands balled into fists. Bad bird, Liam shouted at Caspian, his voice ringing through the silent hall. Mama is not broken. Mama is warm. You are just, smelly and mean. The hall gasped. To see the prince defend the Omega so fiercely was a testament no elder could ignore. Leo felt a surge of something he had never felt before, anger. Not for himself, but for the child who was being forced to fight his battles. He stepped around William and Liam, looking Caspian and the elders in the eye. I may not have a scent that fills a room, Leo said, his voice steadying. And I may have been thrown away by those who value strength over soul. But I have loved this child since the moment I saw him in the snow. If being a consort means being powerful, I am not your man. But if it means being the heart that this family was missing, then I am exactly where I belong. William looked down at Leo, a smirk of pure pride crossing his lips. He wrapped a massive arm around Leo's waist and pulled him flush against his side. You heard him, William said, his voice dropping into a dangerous, dark purr. The broken wolf has more fire in his heart than all of you combined. Now, either drink to your new consort, or leave my mountain before I find out if Caspian's noble blood tastes as sweet as his perfume. Caspian paled and stepped back, his pride shattered. The elders, seeing the shift in power and the devotion in William's eyes, slowly sank to their knees in a reluctant but necessary bow. Later that night, after the guests had cleared and Liam was tucked away, Leo stood on the balcony, looking at the stars. He felt a heavy cloak being draped over his shoulders. You were brave today, William whispered, leaning his chin on Leo's shoulder. I was terrified, Leo admitted, leaning back into the heat of the dragon. I thought they would take me away. Never, William vowed, his nose brushing against Leo's neck. They look for a scent to tell them who you are. I look at how my son smiles when you enter the room. I look at how my own heart beats faster when you look at me. That is the only rank that matters. Leo turned in his arms, his silver eyes glowing. William, thank you for saving me. No, Leo, William murmured, pulling him into a deep, possessive kiss. Thank you for saving us. The mountain was no longer a fortress of cold stone, it had become a sanctuary of heat and whispered promises. In the months following the coronation, William's initial stoicism had melted into a fierce, consuming devotion. The nights in the royal chambers were no longer silent. The air was thick with the scent of cloves and starlight as William held Leo against his massive chest. You're shivering, William murmured one evening, his large, scarred hand tracing the curve of Leo's spine. I'm just happy, Leo whispered, turning in the alpha's arms. Sometimes I still wait for the cold to come back. For the pack to wake me up from this dream. William's grip tightened, his golden eyes flashing with a protective fire. The silver moon pack is dust. You are the heartbeat of this mountain, Leo. My dragon, he craves you more than gold. He leaned down, his lips brushing Leo's forehead, then his neck, marking him again and again with a possessive heat. The broken Omega felt his soul finally knit together. In the silence of the night, their bond deepened, a tether made of more than just rank. It was a fusion of two lonely spirits. Weeks later, the atmosphere in the palace shifted. Leo, once energetic and glowing, became pale and exhausted. He couldn't stand the smell of the roasted meats he once loved, and he found himself sleeping for hours, curled in a nest of William's old cloaks. The royal physician, an ancient dragon shifter named Hagar, was called. William paced the room like a caged beast, his claws clicking against the stone floor. If he is ill because of the winter he endured, William began, his voice a low threat. Peace, my king, Hagar whispered, his eyes wide as he pulled his hand away from Leo's stomach. He is not ill. He is flourishing. Leo looked up from the bed, his voice trembling. Hagar, What is it? My lord, the broken wolf is with child, Hagar announced. The room went silent. William froze mid-step. Outside, the elders had gathered, eavesdropping. A ripple of shock went through the hall. Impossible. Elder Valerius shouted from the doorway. A seedless Omega. A defect. His womb should be as cold as the snow he was found in. A dragon's seed is too powerful for a weak wolf. William didn't roar. He didn't even look at the elder. He walked to the bed and fell to his knees, pressing his ear against Leo's stomach. He closed his eyes, his dragon senses reaching out. His breath hitched. I hear it, William whispered, his voice thick with an emotion he'd never shown. A heartbeat, like a hammer hitting an anvil. It's so strong, Leo. It's so strong. Leo burst into tears, clutching William's hair. I'm not broken. I can give you a family. You already are my family, William growled, kissing Leo's palms. And I will burn the world to keep you safe. The pregnancy was unlike any other. Usually, a wolf Omega carries for 9 months, but as the months passed, Leo's belly didn't just grow soft, it grew warm. A golden light began to emanate from his skin, his silver eyes turning a brilliant, molten amber. The day of the birth, the sky over the forbidden forest turned a deep, royal purple. Thunder rolled without rain. Inside the birthing chamber, Leo screamed, his sweat shimmering like crushed diamonds. William held his hand, his own knuckles white with tension. One more, Mama. One more. Liam cheered from the corner, his small face pale but determined. With a final, guttural cry that sounded more like a dragon's roar than a wolf's whimper, the room was suddenly filled with a blinding, celestial light. The heat was so intense the stone walls glowed. Hagar gasped, falling to his knees. He wasn't holding a crying infant. He was holding something that hadn't been seen in 10,000 years. A golden dragon egg. The shell was made of pure, shimmering scales, pulsing with a rhythmic, internal sun. A golden dragon, Hagar whispered, his voice shaking with religious awe. The ancient texts, they said the gold bloodline died when the world grew cold. They said only a soul of purest starlight could bring them back. The elders, who had crowded into the hall, fell prostrate on the ground. Valerius wept, his forehead touching the floor. He is not a defect, he is the vessel of the sun. Leo lay back, exhausted but glowing with an ethereal beauty. William carefully took the heavy, warm egg and placed it in Leo's arms. Look at what you've done, William whispered, his voice cracking. He looked at the low-rank Omega he had found dying in the snow. You didn't just bring my son's voice back, Leo. You brought the gods back to our people. Leo looked down at the golden egg, then at Liam, who was poking the shell with wonder, and finally at William, the terrifying alpha who had become his world. I'm not a ghost anymore, William, Leo said softly. William leaned down, kissing Leo with a passion that promised a lifetime of devotion. No, my love. You are the sun, and I am just the shadow that lives to serve you. Liam climbed onto the bed, hugging them both. I have a brother. A gold brother. The broken wolf of the silver moon pack was gone. In his place sat the mother of dragons, the most powerful Omega in the world, cradled in the arms of the king who would never let him go. The golden egg sat in a nest of enchanted silk and heated stones for 3 days, pulsing like a living heart. The entire mountain held its breath. The air around the nursery was so thick with ancient magic that even the most cynical elders stood guard in the hallways, their heads bowed in silent penance for ever doubting Leo's worth. Finally, on the dawn of the 4th day, a sound like the chiming of crystal bells echoed through the chamber. Crack! Leo, who hadn't left the bedside, gasped as a spiderweb of light fractured the golden shell. William's hand immediately found Leo's shoulder, his grip grounding and firm. It's time, William whispered, his voice thick with awe. With a final, bright burst of heat, the egg fell away. In its place lay a baby with skin like cream and a tuft of hair as bright as a summer sun. But it was the eyes that stopped their hearts. They weren't wolf silver or dragon gold. They were a shimmering, iridescent violet. Mama, Liam whispered, peering over the edge of the bed. He's glowing. The infant let out a soft, melodic cry, and as he did, tiny, translucent golden wings fluttered for a second before vanishing into his skin. He was the first golden sun dragon born in 10 millennia. The peace of the morning was interrupted by a messenger, pale and trembling. My king, the silver moon pack. They are at the gates. They don't come to fight. They They have heard the prophecies. They are begging for an audience with the consort. William's face transformed into a mask of cold, terrifying iron. They dare. Leo looked at the sleeping miracle in his arms, then at Liam, and finally at his husband. A strange, calm strength settled over him. Let them in, William. I want them to see. The great hall was a sea of obsidian-clad dragons as the Silver Moon delegation was led in. At the front was the Alpha who had signed Leo's death warrant, Alpha Silas. He looked haggard, his pack suffering from a harsh winter and fading status. When Silas looked up and saw Leo sitting on a throne of black stone, draped in royal silks and holding a child that radiated pure, divine power, he fell to his knees so hard the sound echoed. Leo. Silas choked out. We were mistaken. The omens were misread. We didn't know you were the vessel. Please, the pack is starving. The frost is killing our pups. We beg for the Dragon King's mercy, for the sake of our shared blood. Leo looked down at the man who had left him to freeze. He felt no hatred, only a profound, distant pity. You didn't throw me away because you misread an omen, Silas, Leo said, his voice clear and regal, vibrating with a power he hadn't known he possessed. You threw me away because you thought I was low rank. You thought broken meant worthless. You didn't value a life unless it could fight or breed for you. William stepped forward, his shadow towering over the trembling wolves. You left my mate to die alone in the ice. By dragon law, I should burn your valley to ash. No, William, Leo said softly, placing a hand on the Alpha's arm. The touch immediately soothed the dragon's rising fire. Leo turned back to the wolves. I will not burn you. But you are no longer my blood. My blood is here, in this mountain. We will send you enough grain to survive the winter, not for you, but for the pups who are innocent of your cruelty. But you will leave, and you will never speak my name again. To the Silver Moon, Leo is dead. To the world, I am the mother of the Golden Sun. Silas bowed his head in shame, the weight of his mistake heavy enough to break him. He and his men were escorted out, knowing they had thrown away a god. Years passed like a beautiful, golden dream. The Forbidden Forest was renamed the Forest of the Star Wolf, a place of sanctuary for any Omega or Shifter cast out by their kin. On a warm spring evening, the palace gardens were filled with the sound of laughter. Liam, now a tall and proud 10-year-old, was chasing his younger brother, Aurelius, through the flower beds. Aurelius's golden laughter caused flowers to bloom instantly wherever he stepped. Leo sat on a stone bench, watching them with a soft smile. He felt the familiar, searing heat of William's presence before the Alpha even spoke. William sat beside him, pulling Leo back into his chest. The Dragon King looked older, wiser, and more deeply in love than ever. He buried his face in Leo's neck, inhaling the scent of starlight and home. Are you happy, my starlight? William murmured against his skin. Leo leaned his head back, looking at the two boys playing, one his son by soul, the other by blood. He looked at the fortress that had become his home and the man who had taught him that his broken parts were actually where the light got in. I'm not just happy, William, Leo whispered, turning to press a lingering, passionate kiss to his husband's lips. I'm whole. As the sun set over the peaks, the Dragon King and his wolf consort stood together, a testament to the fact that the things the world calls broken were often the most precious treasures of all. The end.